Hey Duke. The scenario wasn't favorable for Duke. And nobody expected this, but who's going to be on the map now? There are 3 guys who probably will be. Let's analyze, but first subscribe to the channel to receive more Duke news. The Duke basketball season ended in a way that still resonates as one of those moments that are difficult to explain, even for those who have followed the game for decades. It wasn't just a loss. It was a collapse that changes narratives, breaks historical statistics, and inevitably accelerates important decisions within a program accustomed to controlling its own destiny in March. Duke had the game in their hands against UConn. A 19-point lead built with authority, a first half that ended 44-29, and the clear feeling that the blue team was heading towards another strong presence in the final stretch of the tournament. But the second half brought an improbable script. 44-28 for the Huskies, a comeback victory, and a 73-72 defeat that goes down in history, not for its brilliance but for the weight it represents. Until then, number 1 seeded teams leading by 15 points or more at halftime were undefeated in the NCAA tournament, with an impressive 134-0 record. Now, that number carries an exception, and it belongs to Duke. This type of result doesn't end with the final whistle. It extends into the offseason, influences individual decisions, and reshapes collective planning. Jon Scheyer, still consolidating his identity at the head of the program, enters one of the most delicate periods since taking command. Not for lack of talent, Duke never has that, but for the number of crossroads that present themselves simultaneously. The expectation was already for significant changes, especially with players evaluating the jump to the NBA. But the transfer portal emerges as an additional element that could profoundly alter the composition of the roster. Currently, 3 names emerge as possible departures, each for distinct reasons, but all connected to the search for prominence and development. Darren Harris perhaps represents the clearest case of a talent who has yet to find his place. He arrived surrounded by expectation, a member of an elite recruiting class, but had limited participation from the start. As a rookie, he played little, and his second season did not bring a significant change to this scenario. His numbers, 3.4 points in about 10 minutes per game, reflect more the lack of consistent opportunities than necessarily his potential. Even in big games, including the tournament, his playing time was reduced. For a player with a high-level pedigree, the search for minutes and rhythm can naturally lead him to consider new paths. Nick Kaminia, on the other hand, is in a more complex situation. Unlike Harris, he was on the court frequently, participating in 37 games and having a role within the rotation. But his offensive impact fell short of what many projected when he arrived as a 5-star recruit. With averages of 5.7 points and 3.3 rebounds, Kaminia has shown utility, especially on defense and in understanding the game's tactics, but he hasn't yet assumed the offensive leadership that his profile suggests. There's value in that, a lot of value, in fact, but there's also ambition. In another context, with more freedom and playing time, he could better explore his qualities, especially as a shooter. And it's precisely this type of reflection that usually fuels transfer decisions. Caden Boozer, on the other hand, presents perhaps the most interesting scenario among the 3. His performance this season had distinct moments, but revealed something fundamental: the ability to lead when necessary. During Caleb Foster's absence, Boozer assumed greater responsibilities and responded with solid numbers, raising his scoring average and maintaining shooting efficiency. Furthermore, he showed physical and mental resilience while playing heavy minutes in succession, something that doesn't go unnoticed. The dilemma, in his case, isn't about ability but about context. With Foster returning and the arrival of another highly recruited point guard, the competition for minutes and ball control is likely to intensify. For a player who has already demonstrated the ability to lead a team, the possibility of seeking an environment where he is the starting point guard from the beginning becomes a real alternative. Even so, His recent performance also reinforces how many valuable players Duke has internally. And that's precisely the central point of this whole situation. Even in the face of a painful end to the season, Duke remains one of the most attractive programs in the country. The constant presence of elite talent, the capacity for development, and the national visibility mean that any move, whether staying, going to the NBA, or transferring, happens within a highly competitive context. Leave your opinion and subscribe.